What's up, guys? I'm Chris Spags here, back with another Four Corners video breaking down today's 6-game NBA slate, courtesy of Awesemo.com. Now, yesterday might have been one of the stronger videos we've had this entire time I've been doing them, so like the video, leave a comment down below, tell me which guy you like the most on today's slate. Let's keep the momentum going, keep the activity going. I'll jump in the comments later on to talk to you guys, but like the video right now and leave a comment. First corner I wanted to hit on is a game with the Lakers visiting the Bucks. This one is a 234.5 point combined total, which is a slate high, and it represents a 5.1 point boost from Milwaukee, and it's flat with the Lakers season average. Now, there's no Giannis in this game, no LeBron as well, so this game looked like a chance to blow out. It was an 11-point spread, and the Lakers without LeBron did do a pretty poor job versus the Pistons last week, but it is a spot now where this game could be more competitive as a result of no stars being available. Rajon Rondo had 38.5 fantasy points in the most recent LeBron-less game versus the Detroit Pistons. I think you're going to see him get a lot of open looks today because the Bucks defense is designed to let some shooters get open looks. And I think even though Rajon Rondo is actually the second best three-point shooter on the Lakers right now, just behind Alex Caruso, I think the perception is that Rondo is going to shoot a lot and miss a lot. So he's going to get some shots, I think. And if he doesn't get a ton of shots, he's still going to get a lot of assist upside. So I like the spot for Rondo quite a bit as long as the Lakers can hang in this one. Kyle Kuzma's had 10 and 8 assists in his last two games, and as a points-dependent scorer whose price is also coming down, I think it's a nice situation when you're seeing Kuzma actually push some assist upside up. I think he's got some potential in this game. I think he actually could spike a ceiling day here if the Lakers keep this close, so I like Kyle Kuzma quite a bit. JaVale McGee had 30 minutes and 45.75 fantasy points in the Lakers' last game without LeBron, and that was a matchup with Andre Drummond, so the size may have been needed there. I think there's some risk that McGee doesn't stay on the court here. He's not as switchable, so you could see them go to a guy like Jonathan Williams. You also can't shoot, so you could see them go with a guy who's starting for LeBron, Mike Muscala at center. You could also see maybe Mo Wagner pick up some minutes. I think there's some risk for McGee, but he is going to get that first shot if he does play himself on the floor, and the Bucks have given up some easy rim runs to guys who are more power players, like a Bam Adebayo's had some decent days versus them. I think that could benefit McGee, but I think there's a ton of risk on McGee, so I'll have some exposure, but I won't go crazy with it because he could just get played off the floor because of the matchup. Alex Caruso's had 3 straight games over 29.75 fantasy points. He looks like a really solid play today. He's going to get a lot of usage, it seems, in that second unit. That second unit's been like Lord of the Flies, really, where they're all fighting for the same ball over and over again. So a guy like KCP is a little bit hard to trust, not picking up a ton of usage in that group as all these guys try to get their shots up. So Caruso, I would prefer to KCP, but both guys I think are in play as value. On the Bucks side, Eric Bledsoe has benefited quite a bit from no Giannis and no Malcolm Brogdon in the lineup. He's put up 1.51 fantasy points per minute, which is up from his season average of 1.13 fantasy points per minute. Really, the only risk here is him not exerting enough effort because they could run away with this game pretty easily versus the Lakers with no LeBron. But I think Bledsoe's in a nice spot here, so I'm willing to go to him at a pretty decent clip of ownership, and I think you want to probably match the field because he does have a big ceiling here if this one stays competitive. Chris Middleton also sees a pretty big boost to 1.38 fantasy points per minute with no Giannis and no Brogdon on the court, which is up from his season average of 1.08 fantasy points per minute. The only guy who doesn't benefit is Brook Lopez. He goes down a little bit, probably because of Giannis not kicking him the ball and the swings to the outside. So Lopez a little bit worse, but still in play here and in what is technically a revenge spot. Nikola Mirotic was looking like he was going to be popular even with Giannis on the lineup. Now he should be extra popular. I still want to get close to where the field is with him because I think he's going to have some upside here. Ersan Ilyasova also should see some extra minutes because of no Giannis on the court. That's going to help him out a little bit as a value guy. I'd also throw in Pat Connaughton as a value guy to consider, but really not a ton of upside to be expected there. The next corner I want to hit on is a game with the Rockets visiting the Hawks, and this one has a 231.5 point combined total, which represents a 6.3 point boost for Houston and a very irrelevant 0.3 drop for Atlanta. James Harden put up 39.25 fantasy points on 7 for 21 shooting the last time he played Atlanta a few weeks ago. A bounce back spot here does seem in play, though it certainly would be helpful to know if the Rockets were in Atlanta last night or whether they were not, because James Harden is a known lover of the nightlife. But I think either way, because of the ceiling in this matchup, the pace, I would want to get some exposure to Harden. Right now he's projected for 24% ownership. I think matching the field there or getting close to that does make sense because if he spikes that big day, I don't think you want to miss out on it because it could be a slate breaker. Chris Paul seems safer with a little more questionable upside. There is some assist chances here though. The Hawks not a good defense, the pace, that all plays well into Chris Paul, spiking more of an upside with his peripherals, but I still would prefer Harden because I think he's got that ceiling. Chris Paul, I think you can find his high production levels somewhere else on the slate. Clint Capella's price is up, and it seems tough for me to go there with what he's shown, but he's still projected for under 5% ownership, so I could see wanting to go there. He's been over 41.25 fantasy points in 2 out of his last 4 games, so there is something of a ceiling there, but with his price up, I don't know that you're going to see that big monster day that you need, so a little bit of exposure for Capella does make some degree of sense. Eric Gordon's been already ruled out for rest tomorrow, but he'll be in the lineup today, and today is the day that he'd want to be in there if he's going to stat pad. I would play him in a lineup without Harden. I think if Harden's not scoring, then you'll probably see some more from Gordon. I think also you could see some assist upside from Paul in that same lineup. So I think that's where I would go to Gordon, but not a guy who wanted a ton of volume. Trae Young put up 51.25 fantasy points the last time he played Houston, but that was when he wasn't really playing with a true backup point guard behind him. His minutes have been down to the low 30s recently, so I would like to go underneath his ownership. Right now, we're projecting him for the low 20% ownership. I think that seems high for Trae Young. He's still in a decent spot with where his price is, though. I don't think you're going to see a crazy high ceiling day. John Collins, to me, is more interesting at 1/3 of Trae Young's projected ownership right now. Collins had a bad time last game versus Orlando, getting into some foul trouble, seeing just 20 minutes. Before that, he did have 45.5 fantasy points in 4 straight games. Collins has shown some upside here. It's a pace down spot, so it's not going to be perfect for Collins, but I think he's an interesting guy, and he could spike an upside day here. Kevin Huerter's been an interesting option, but I think he's a little bit less appealing now that Dwayne Dedmon is back in the starting lineup. When Dedmon was out, we saw Huerter pushing a lot of action, driving, slashing, and kicking. A lot of movement for Huerter. Really, he was playing point guard as much as Trae Young was. Now that Dedmon's back in there, running a lot of handoffs, a lot of pick and roll plays, it seems like there's less opportunity for Huerter, but I think I would still have a little bit of Huerter exposure today just because he does have some upside that he's shown, and he is shooting a bit more recently. The next corner I want to hit on is a game with the Warriors visiting the Wolves. This one has a 229.5 point combined total, which is basically flat for both teams' season averages. Steph Curry's had 23 and 25 shots in his last 2 games, including putting up 6 for 18 from deep yesterday versus San Antonio. The Timberwolves defense is a lot more hospitable. They're allowing 37.7% from deep shooting, which is pretty close to a slate high. It's a good spot for Steph Curry to continue to push that usage up and actually convert it into a high ceiling day. So I like him quite a bit, and I think the 15% ownership expected from him, especially with DeMarcus Cousins out, or expected to be out right now, it is a good spot to go to Steph Curry and go above the field. Klay Thompson was 5 for 18 versus San Antonio, and he's also been benefiting from some of the usage with no DeMarcus Cousins. I think it's a good spot for him to get back on track again. The Timberwolves just a bad defense, allowing good shooting from the field and from deep. So it's a good spot for Klay Thompson to figure that out. His price is still up a little bit, but he does have upside, so I like Klay Thompson quite a bit. Kevin Durant's price drop is appealing, but the ankle is a concern. The usage is also a bit of a concern. I'd honestly rather go to Draymond Green at half the ownership of Kevin Durant's 14%. I think Draymond Green's got some more assist upside here, also some rebounding upside with no Cousins. It's a good spot for Green, and I'm not sure it's a great spot for Kevin Durant with his injury back-to-back and the fact that the usage is probably going to flow elsewhere. Tyus Jones, his price is up because of Jeff Teague being out, so he's an interesting contrarian option today. The Wolves are going to need some scoring to keep in this one versus the Warriors, even if the Warriors don't have their full-strength roster right now. So it's a spot where Tyus Jones could get on track. The price is really tough to pay, but I think a little bit of exposure, given the fact that nobody's expected to be on him, does make some degree of sense. Karl-Anthony Towns' 32% ownership is the highest expected in this game, and I'd want to come close to that. Towns could really have a lot of upside here. He's been pushing over a 40% usage rate in a lot of games recently. Without Jeff Teague in there, going to have the ball in his hands a lot more as well. Andrew Bogut's also going to be going against him as a starter, and Andrew Bogut's been on his couch for the last entirety of the season, and he just got back to the Warriors rotation after signing with them. He's expected to start again, so I think this is a spot where Towns could feast upon him if he's given the opportunity. Conversely, Andrew Wiggins' 27% ownership seems a bit too high for me. It feels like a trap, honestly, where they're trying to rope you in with a cheap price, knowing that he's just going to have a 30 fantasy point day, which might be okay, but really not enough to do much for you in a tournament. I'd rather go to Derrick Rose if he ends up ruled in. He's currently questionable right now, but otherwise, I'm not dying to have that much of Andrew Wiggins. I'd rather find value elsewhere. The last corner I want to hit on is a game with the Sixers visiting the Hornets. This one has a 224-point combined total, which represents a 1.2-point boost for Charlotte and a 2.6-point drop for Philadelphia. Kemba Walker is averaging 65.7 fantasy points in 3 games versus Philly this year. I think you could see that come back to earth. He's been really pushing the usage up for whatever reason versus Philly. I think that could drop, but the fact that he's going to be 23% owned, I would worry about missing out on that ceiling Kemba Walker day with where his price is, so I think matching the field there does work for me. Marvin Williams, though, we have projected for 30% ownership, and that doesn't work for me at all. I don't know why he would be that highly owned. He's a decent value guy, but I think if people are still seeing that one big day he had versus Washington where he put up 30 fantasy points, also shot an insanely high percentage from 3, and just a high amount from 3, I don't think you're going to see that Marvin Williams again, so I would go under Marvin Williams. Nick Batum has been the much steadier option. I'd rather go to him than Marvin Williams. He's been over 30 fantasy points in 7 out of his last 11 games. He contributes in a bunch of categories, so you don't need to just have that crazy high-scoring day. Again, Marvin Williams is fine. He can have a day where he gets you enough, opens up enough value to get you the other guys who are higher priced on the lineup. But I'd rather go to Nick Batum knowing that he's going to at least give me something. And Jeremy Lamb still looks like the highest ceiling option at the wing. He's a little bit higher priced, but you're getting him at less ownership, so that washes out. The fact that he's got that big tournament upside, which we have seen before, he's had a 40 fantasy point day versus the 76ers this year, could all benefit well for Jeremy Lamb today. With no Joel Embiid, Boban Marjanovic projects to be the highest owned in the slate at 53%, and I actually would come close to that. We've seen him get up to the high 20s in minutes in games in which he started for Embiid, and really the issue is just the matchup. If he doesn't get going in the matchup, he could see less minutes, but with the Hornets being really bad versus center since Cody Zeller went out, this does seem like a spot where Marjanovic should be able to kill them inside, and really their small ball lineup for the Hornets isn't very good either, so I don't think they're going to be able to play him off the floor. So I like Boban Marjanovic today, and I think he can have that big day that he needs. I would be worried about missing out on him as a value. Jimmy Butler's had games of 44.5 and 45 fantasy points since returning from his rest day last week, which may have been more of a mental health get well day. I think the motivation he's showing is good. It's been really good for him at least. I think he looks like he's in a fine spot here, and he's going to be pretty low owned because people, I think, are not buying into the bounce back Butler. It seems like Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris have been suffering for Jimmy Butler's recent surge, but I think without Joel Embiid in the lineup, there should be enough usage to go around for those guys to pick up some more. The question for me, though, is really whether Butler does too much of the same things to help those guys out. So I don't mind Simmons and Tobias, but I probably wouldn't play either of them. Definitely not them together with Jimmy Butler. And JJ Redick returns to his college state, where a place where he roamed the fields of Cameron Indoor Stadium, lighting it up for Duke. And that hasn't been a spot which has benefited him at all in the past, which kind of surprised me, but not a thing to consider really today, but he's still a fine play. Not as good with Joel Embiid on the court, but he has had some upside days. So JJ Redick's fine, but not getting as much from going back to the state of North Carolina as you may think. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on today's NBA slate, and please do check the link in the description, my column, Switch and Hedge. It has more details on all the games, and it'll be updated for if any other injuries come through and ruin what we've already talked about. And please do like the video and leave a comment telling me who you like the most on today's slate. The engagement that you guys have shown has really helped keep me motivated to do these every day. Been happy with the results. It seems like you guys have been happy with the results as well. So please like the video, comment down below, and let's keep the momentum going. And last but not least, don't forget to check the promo code Switch and Hedge. That'll give you half off your first month at Awesemo.com. All the ownership projections and rankings from Awesemo, who is a top player in the world in DFS, as well as some premium Slack access so you can talk to a bunch of like-minded people. Also, all of our content creators pop in there to talk as well. So go check the promo code Switch and Hedge, get half off your first month. I'll be back again tomorrow with another Four Corners video, so good luck.